As a mother of two small boys, I think we may have to find a securer way of helping our children.
For decades, speculation surrounded a lost letter from Princess Diana to Princess, and one that could reveal hidden truths about her final years and the monarchy's future. Now, after 26 years, the letter has finally been uncovered, raising more questions than answers. Why did Diana reach out to him despite their distant relationship? Was it a plea for understanding, a warning, or a message the royal family wanted buried forever? What if everything we believe to be true about Princess Diana could be changed by a single letter? A missing letter to Princess, and which might have contained secrets about Diana's hardships and the future of the monarchy, had been the subject of decades of gossip. Now, after 26 years, the letter has come to light. Diana was never close to Anne, so why did she write to her? Was it something the royal family didn't want the public to see? A warning or a plea? And what had Diana said that had been so long suppressed? Diana was well known for her intense private letters, often filled with unfiltered passion and confessions she was unable to publicly express. Her handwritten notes to confidants and friends had given the world glimpses of her most vulnerable moments. However, this letter was different. People began to wonder about the real nature of their friendship when she sought out Princess, and of all people. Was it an effort to make amends, a request for understanding, or something far more startling? Even after the letter's discovery, the royal family remained silent and refused to acknowledge its existence. However, their lack of response only fueled speculation. Why had it been hidden for so long if its contents were innocent? Some believed the letter contained secrets about Diana's last years, undisclosed realities about her hardships, the oppressive nature of royal life, and possibly even a prophecy about what lay ahead. Others thought it reflected the tense relationship between two women who had never truly known each other, something deeply personal. To fully comprehend the significance of this letter, one must travel back decades to a time when Diana and Anne were just two women, separated by duty but bound by everything else. From the beginning, their relationship was complex. Diana's warmth and charm had captured the public's attention, but Anne was adamant that duty came before feelings. She had no patience for theatrics, or what she saw as unnecessary public spectacles, and believed Diana was too eager to please and too preoccupied with the praise she received. Their initial interactions had not been cordial. Diana had tried her hardest to get close to her future sister-in-law in the months leading up to her marriage to Prince Charles in 1991. She wanted to leave a positive impression and show her respect for the strict customs of the royal family. But Anne didn't care. She had seen too many newcomers try to fit in by being what they thought a royal should be. One instance in particular stood out. Just weeks before Diana's wedding in late June, she sought out and, hoping to share a moment of connection, she greeted Anne formally, using the customary royal phrase to show respect. However, Anne barely acknowledged her and hardly raised her head from her work. That cold moment left a lasting impression on Diana, shaping their relationship moving forward. Anne had no desire to be her friend. But why? What was the reason for Anne's initial resistance to Diana? Many believed it was simply a clash of personalities. Anne had a reputation for living a straightforward life. As a royal, she worked tirelessly behind the scenes, carrying out her responsibilities without seeking recognition. Yet, despite her dedication, she had never been in the media spotlight like Diana. Diana's every move was watched and praised, while Anne's efforts often went unnoticed. Over time, the resentment only grew. By the early 1980s, Anne was regarded as one of the most diligent royals, having performed hundreds of engagements with unwavering dedication. Then Diana arrived, and the narrative shifted. With her natural ability to connect with the public, her genuine interest in people's lives, and her undeniable charm, Diana became everything the world wanted in a princess. Another seemingly small, but significant rift further fueled Anne's coldness toward Diana. Many assumed Anne would be Prince William's godmother when he was born in 1992. After all, Charles had been the godfather of Anne's son, Peter. Naturally, the favor was expected to be returned. However, Diana thought otherwise. She chose someone outside the immediate royal family, someone more personally dear to her, and did not overlook Diana's choice. Already feeling eclipsed by her, and was now publicly rejected for a role she had assumed would be hers. However, it didn't stop there. At the very least, and expected to be considered when Prince Harry was born in 1984. Yet again, Diana chose someone else. This time, and took it personally. Her response was telling. She was conspicuously absent on the day of Prince Harry's christening, even though the rest of the family was present to celebrate. Her official reason? A prior engagement. However, many believed it was a deliberate statement. Instead of attending, Anne remained at her Gloucestershire home and hosted a hunting party while the royal family gathered at Windsor Castle. The rejection was silent but unmistakable. The message was clear. If she wasn't important enough to be included, then she had no reason to be there. Despite these tensions, Diana never publicly mentioned Anne. She never spoke of their lack of intimacy or the aloofness that defined their interactions. But it was there. Now, with the discovery of this long-lost letter, new questions arose. Had Diana made one last attempt to reach out? Had she tried to make herself understood, to heal whatever rifts had formed between them? The most pressing question of all was why Anne had never acknowledged it. Had she simply dismissed it, as she had dismissed Diana years before? Or was the truth far more complex? Everything people believed about Diana and Anne's relationship could change with this one letter. But to truly understand its significance, one had to go back even further, to the years when Diana's world was unraveling, when she was more alone than ever, and when writing became her only escape. Before judging its meaning, one had to consider why she might have reached out to Anne at all. If Diana had indeed written to her, perhaps she was seeking understanding in her later years, something she had never truly found before. Diana always knew that life inside the palace was bound by customs and unspoken rules, dictating relationships, behavior, and even emotions. She had spent years trying to navigate the intricate web of expectations. But by the early 1990s, the facade was crumbling. The fairy tale of her marriage to Prince Charles had long been replaced by a harsh reality she could no longer ignore. She was isolated, and as her marriage deteriorated, so did her standing within the royal family. By 1992, the whispers had grown deafening. Every tense public appearance between Diana and Charles was scrutinized by the media. But behind the palace walls, things were even worse. Diana felt trapped in a life where she had lost her identity. She had no allies within the royal household. Her mental health was declining, and every time she sought support, she was met with cold indifference. The royal family had always maintained an image of emotional restraint, but Diana believed the detachment was deliberate. She confided in close friends that she felt like an inconvenience, a disruption to the carefully maintained order of the monarchy. And as her marriage crumbled, her relationships with the rest of the family only worsened. There was a time when she thought someone like Anne, despite their differences, might understand her struggles. But she was wrong. Anne was a pillar of traditional royal duty. She wore the crown's burden without complaint, while Diana struggled under its weight, and had no sympathy for public confessions or emotional vulnerability. To her, Diana's media presence, her deeply personal interviews, and her willingness to discuss her struggles were betrayals of everything the monarchy represented. But Diana felt she had no other choice. Then came the turning point. In December 1992, British Prime Minister John Major announced that Charles and Diana were officially divorcing. The world was shocked, But inside the palace, no one was surprised. The royal family had long anticipated this outcome. What they hadn't anticipated was how Diana would choose to tell her side of the story. In 1995, Diana made a decision that would change the course of royal history. She sat down for an explosive interview with BBC's Panorama, revealing the struggles of her marriage, her battle with bulimia, and, in a moment that would never be forgotten, she addressed Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. With calm certainty, she uttered the words that would define the scandal. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The interview was a direct challenge to the monarchy's traditions. It was emotional, raw, and completely unscripted. More than anything, it was the final act of defiance that the royal family could not ignore. The rift between Diana and the royal family deepened, and she became an outsider. She was no longer just the estranged wife of the future king. Reports suggested that, and, like the rest of the royal family, was incensed. She saw Diana's interview as an unnecessary spectacle, a public humiliation that undermined the monarchy's credibility. More than anything, it confirmed Anne's belief that Diana was never suited for royal life. Despite their disagreements, Diana had still written to Anne. The fact that the letter had remained secret for decades indicated that Diana had intended to convey an important message. But why reach out to someone who had always kept her distance? What could she have possibly said? Diana's life took a new direction after the Panorama interview. No longer bound by royal duties, she went beyond traditional expectations in her charitable work. She became known as the People's Princess through her humanitarian efforts, including her work in landmine-affected nations, AIDS clinics, and with leprosy patients. Stepping out of the royal shadow, she crafted a new legacy for herself. However, this newfound independence also made her more vulnerable. Without the protection of the royal family, she became an easy target for the media and those who sought to control her narrative. The final chapter of Diana's life unfolded in 1997. In the months leading up to her tragic death, she seemed to sense that time was running out. She wrote more letters than ever to trusted friends, colleagues, and confidants. Each one carried a sense of urgency, as if she feared something was about to happen. In one letter, she complained about being constantly watched. In another, she spoke of the immense pressure she was under and her fear of being silenced. Though she understood the risks of speaking out, she had never been one to stay quiet. If Diana had written to Anne, it was unlikely that she expected kindness in return. Perhaps she had not sought reconciliation but simply wanted someone, anyone in the royal family, to hear her. Maybe she wanted Anne to understand what she had endured. Perhaps she hoped that, in time, Anne would see that she was not the villain the family had made her out to be. Yet, Anne never acknowledged the letter. For years, no one even knew it existed. Its existence only became public in 2014, when a private collection of Diana's letters went up for auction. Among them was an unopened envelope containing a single note addressed to Anne. It held the message Diana had longed for someone in the royal family to hear. Diana had always been a writer. Long before she became the most photographed woman in the world, writing had been her refuge. It allowed her to process emotions she could not express aloud, and to make her voice heard when no one seemed to be listening. But as 1997 wore on, the tone of her letters changed. They carried a sense of foreboding and quiet despair, as though she knew her time was running out. That summer, Diana's situation became increasingly precarious. Though she had been freed from royal obligations, she had also lost the protection that came with them. Her divorce from Charles was finalized in August 1996. Stripped of her title of Her Royal Highness, she was now simply Diana, Princess of Wales. Though a minor detail, it was a significant one. Without the royal institution's shield, she was more exposed than ever. Diana spent much of her time outside Britain, having begun a relationship with Dodi Fayed, the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. Whether on humanitarian missions in war-torn regions or vacationing on yachts in the Mediterranean, the media followed her relentlessly. Yet those closest to her sensed something different. While the world saw a woman embracing a new chapter, Diana herself was deeply uneasy. She struggled to sleep. She was anxious. And she was afraid. Diana confided in friends that she felt watched. In October 1996, she wrote to her former butler, Paul Burrell, claiming there was a plot against her. She spoke of evil forces at work and a growing sense of paranoia that she could not shake. Her letter to and likely contained more than just an attempt at reconciliation. If this was her state of mind at the time, it was most likely a warning. She must have felt that and needed to hear what she had to say, for reasons only she knew. But why Anne? And had never been a friend or an ally. She had remained distant, critical, and, at times, openly disdainful of Diana. Yet, for some reason, Diana had still chosen to write to her. Lady Diana had a close friendship with Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, so it would have seemed more logical for her to write to her. Yet, for some reason, she chose Anne. Perhaps Diana recognized something in, and that others did not. Despite their differences, Anne had long been regarded as the most independent royal, living by her own rules and defying convention. She was known for being direct, practical, and brutally honest. Maybe Diana believed, and was the only member of the family capable of handling the truth and understanding what she had endured. Although the exact date of Diana's letter is unknown, experts who have studied her final months believe it was written sometime between May and July of 1997. This was a crucial period in her life. She was making headlines for stepping into politically sensitive areas, amplifying her humanitarian efforts, and continuing her fight against landmines. In early 1997, she visited Angola with the Halo Trust, an organization dedicated to clearing landmines. It was one of her most significant and memorable acts. A famous photograph captured her walking through an active minefield, a bold statement that proved she was more than just a royal figurehead. She was a force for change. However, this act of defiance against political leaders who had ignored the issue also put her in danger. In the months that followed, Diana became increasingly vocal about her concerns. Several powerful figures disliked her involvement in foreign affairs. Could this letter have contained something she had discovered? If it was meant to warn, and did she believe it was something the royal family needed to know? The letter may have been even more personal. In her final months, Diana seemed to long for someone in the royal family to truly see her, not as the people's princess, not as a media sensation, but as the woman she really was. She was a devoted mother who adored her two sons more than anything. She was a woman who had fought to save a failing marriage, only to be met with cold indifference from those who were supposed to support her. Whatever Diana wrote, it remained unread for over 26 years, and never spoke of it. The palace never acknowledged its existence. It was as if the letter had been sealed away, never to be discovered. But that changed in 2024. Royal historians and collectors took notice when a private collection of Diana's letters was put up for sale in Essex. Most of the letters were familiar, thank you notes to her staff and correspondence with close friends. But one letter stood out. A single, sealed envelope addressed to Princess and had remained unopened for decades. Its very existence had been unknown to the public. When the contents were finally revealed, those who had spent years studying Diana's life were stunned. The letter, opened in 2024, contained something no one had expected. It was not an attempt to expose the monarchy's secrets. It was not a desperate plea for help. It was something far more unsettling. Diana had written not just about her struggles, but also about the future. The letter was dated early 1997, only months before her tragic death in Paris. Written in her signature cursive, the words were as heartfelt and sincere as the rest of her correspondence. Yet the tone was different. Diana was not writing with regret or sadness. She wrote with purpose. She spoke about the challenges she had faced, how she had tried to navigate a system that had no place for someone like her, and how she had been silenced when she tried to tell her truth. She wrote about how she had been cast aside for not conforming. But more than anything, she wrote about the future of the monarchy, and how and of all people would play a role in shaping it. Her words were not bitter. There was no anger, only remarkable clarity, as though she had already accepted her fate. She expressed concerns about the institution that once welcomed her, but later abandoned her in her time of need. Even more astonishingly, Diana made a prediction that now seems eerily accurate. She believed that the monarchy, in its current form, would not survive. The traditions that had governed the royal family for centuries were fading, and the next generation would not tolerate them. She wrote about William and Harry, fearing that the rigid expectations placed on them might push them to leave the institution entirely. The most surprising part of the letter came when she addressed and personally, speaking to her as someone she had come to understand. Diana had always viewed indifferently, not just as a sister-in-law. She admitted that they had never truly understood each other and were fundamentally different. However, she also acknowledged that she respected Anne's strength and ability to fulfill royal duties without seeking approval or recognition. In many ways, Anne was everything Diana had tried and failed to be: self-reliant, unfazed, and unconcerned with public perception. The most haunting part of the letter came in the form of a question. "When I am no longer able to protect them, would you?" It was a chilling request, suggesting that Diana had already accepted the possibility that she would not live to see her sons grow up. She was asking Anne, who had never been affectionate toward her and had never publicly supported her, to look after William and Harry in her absence. But why Anne? Why not the Queen or even Charles? Perhaps Diana believed that, despite Anne's cold exterior, she was the only one who could provide her sons with what she had never received: guidance without interference, support without spectacle, and had never played into media narratives or sought to control the press. She had lived a quiet, dutiful life, fulfilling her responsibilities without seeking praise. Maybe Diana thought, and was the only one who could help William and Harry navigate a life she had found unbearable. Everything changed when the letter was discovered. It forced people to reconsider Anne's role in the royal family. Had she ever privately heeded Diana's advice after her passing? Had she ever reached out to William or Harry? Had she tried to be the person Diana had hoped she would be? The palace remained silent about the letter's authenticity, fueling speculation. Yet, experts who analyzed Diana's handwriting, style of communication, and frequent use of letters as an emotional outlet believed it to be genuine. It was not the dramatic revelation many had expected. It did not expose betrayals, conspiracies, or affairs. Instead, it was something far more human: a mother's desperate attempt to ensure her children would not be left alone, even if she was no longer there. But had Anne listened? In the years following Diana's death, Anne remained as private as ever. She did not engage with the media the way others did, and rarely spoke about family matters. However, upon reflection, some began to notice subtle changes. Though Anne had not been particularly close to William and Harry when they were young, it was said that she worked behind the scenes to grant them more autonomy over their own lives, and was instrumental in pushing for reforms that allowed younger royals greater independence and a more modernized monarchy. Notably, she was one of the few family members who did not publicly criticize Prince Harry and Meghan Markle when they announced their decision to step away from royal duties in 2020. Could it be that she remembered what Diana had told her all those years ago? Beyond raising countless questions, the letter's emergence in 2024 also provided a sense of closure. For years, Diana's story had been framed as one of tragedy, lost potential, and unfulfilled promise. But this letter was different. It was not a tale of regret or despair. It was a final act of hope. Even as she lost her battle within the institution, Diana never stopped fighting for her sons. Her words resurfaced decades later, a powerful reminder of the freedom she had always wanted for William and Harry. Yet, the lingering question remained, had Anne truly honored Diana's request, or had it, like so much of Diana's life, been ignored? The royal family had long prioritized secrecy, and the letter's revelation reignited old debates about royal traditions, duty, and the cost of maintaining the monarchy. The institution had prided itself on its ability to adapt while preserving the customs that had guided it for generations. But Diana had seen what others refused to acknowledge. Times were changing. She understood that blind reverence for royal traditions was fading, and that the monarchy risked collapsing under its own rigidity if it did not evolve. Her words, too, and were not just a plea for her sons, but a quiet warning about the future. Now, 26 years after Diana's death, that warning seemed more relevant than ever. The royal family carried on as if nothing had changed. They mourned her publicly, yet the institution remained as guarded as before, bound by duty and tradition. William and Harry grew up within the same rigid framework that had suffocated their mother. Yet, despite the palace's efforts to maintain control, Diana's influence could not be erased. Her legacy continued to shape not only her sons' identities, but also the very perception of the monarchy itself. Both William and Harry, as adults, began making choices that aligned more with their mother's values than with the traditions imposed on them. The future king, William, approached royal life with a modern perspective, balancing his duties with a strong sense of independence. He married Catherine Middleton, a commoner, and together they raised their children in a way that was vastly different from how previous royal heirs had been brought up. Their warmth, relatability, and clear desire to give their children as normal a life as possible were evident. Diana had always hoped that William would embrace his role, but on his own terms. Harry, however, took a much more drastic step. Citing the same struggles that had plagued Diana, he and Meghan Markle made the shocking decision to leave royal life entirely in 2021. History was repeating itself. The relentless media intrusion, lack of security, and deep sense of isolation made it clear that Diana's fears had been justified. When the couple